For all of history, the assets that drove the economy have been driven by limits. And now we have an inexhaustible supply. That computers, talking to computers, create new data, that creates new new software-driven products, that creates new data, and it becomes our own perpetual motion machine. And about half of that data that is created every day is data about you and me. Is the collection of information about our practices on a scale that Big Brother could have only imagined being delivered not by totalitarian governments like Orwell envisioned, but by capitalists. And that union of computing and communications leads us to what's next. 4 quick things. 1, the nature of our networks is changing. Network has always been take something from A to B. When you have a network that is nothing more than connected microchips out here, suddenly the role of the network evolves to become an orchestrating activity rather than a transporting activity. Quick example. When you bring up Waze or Google Maps or whatever in your car for the connected car, that is a classic example of how a network works. Get information, bring it back, point to point. An autonomous car takes thousands of inputs to make the decision how not to hit the school bus. And all of that work is done out here in the network. These devices are this size because of the computing power that has to be in here, the chips that have to be in here. You move that computing power out into the network, and suddenly the size of this disappears, and you start seeing on your glasses, for instance, the screen displays. The nature of networks is moving from transporting to orchestrating. Secondly, artificial intelligence. We hear an awful lot about artificial intelligence. We can talk more about it if you want. But what is artificial intelligence? It is the use of computing power to create and store data and have ready access to it over the network to bring in a new algorithm that does a pretty good job making a prediction. Third big change, blockchain. And I mean a lot more than Bitcoin. 40 years after Gutenberg, Luca Paciolotti, a mathematician in Venice, came up with the idea of double-entry bookkeeping, and Gutenberg's printing spread it throughout Italy and then throughout Europe. And what that enabled was 2 banks to know they were each keeping score the same way. And that meant that I could cash what was drawn on this bank, and they would have relationships back and forth with each other. And that, because it was a matter of trust, we knew we were keeping score the same way, and that trust was what the bank sold. Same thing exists today in credit cards, right? You trust that they'll take your card, the merchant trusts that they'll get paid for it. Blockchain takes advantage of this distributed orchestrating network to move that trust out and to redefine trust. And the fourth thing that is going to define our future is cybersecurity. We are somehow surprised at all of the attacks, the cyber attacks we're constantly hearing about. Networks have always been attack vectors. So why should we be surprised that the network of the 21st century is an attack vector? I don't care whether it was Native Americans following animal paths to attack the tribe next door, or Caesar using a road network to conquer the world. Networks have always been attack vectors. We have a new network. Why are we surprised that it is the attack vector of the 21st century? The only thing that's surprising is we didn't think about that ahead of time, and we're now playing whack-a-mole with how we deal with cybersecurity.